Hello students, in the last class we discussed about actually what do you mean by sampling, census, sampling unit, sampling frame, all these things. And also we discussed types of sampling like probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Now we are going to discuss actually what are those methods, probability sampling methods and as well as non-probability sampling methods. The probability sampling methods or else the random probability sampling methods are like the first one is the simple random sampling method, systematic random sampling methods, stratified random sampling methods, multi-stage sampling method, multi-phase sampling method, cluster sampling methods. All these falls under probability sampling methods. Under non-probability sampling methods, convenience sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling. So these are the very, very important methods. Okay. Now we'll discuss actually what is a simple random sampling. So what is a simple random sampling? Actually this method is applied whenever the population is small. So countably finite. Understand? Countably infinite, countably finite. Okay. All the tables in a college, you call them as countably finite. If you want, you can count them. All the almaras in a, let us suppose, in a village, you can count if you want. But all leaves on any neem tree, it's difficult to count. What to call that situation as countably infinite. So generally the simple random sampling, this method is applied when the population is finite, I mean to say small, homogeneous and as well as readily available. All subsets of the frame are given an equal probability. Each element of the frame thus has an equal probability of selection. The randomness, the name itself indicating that when you are choosing any sample by using this method, all other units are going to be having this equal importance, equal probability. So let us suppose that for a teacher, out of 60 students, if you want to select 10 members for a college cricket team, understand? So what will be there? He will be having equal, equal weightage or equal importance looking at the students, understand? So based upon that, he is going to select what you call the 10 members who are able to play cricket. So there all the students are going to have equal importance, I mean to say equal probability. And this method is known as the random sampling. It provides for greatest number of possible samples. This is done by assigning a number to each unit in the sampling frame. Most of the time, the simple random sampling, before starting this method, all the units of the population should be given labels, especially the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, understand? From that only, what you can collect, n number of samples can be collected. 5, 10, 12, whatever is the size of the sample. But that should be less than the size of the population. So always remember that you need to pick such a sample which should explain all the characteristics of the population effectively. A table of random number or a lottery system is used to determine which units are to be selected, and also a roulette wheel method. So generally when you are going for selecting a sample by using simple random sampling. The very common method is nothing but the lottery system. You know very well. So most of the times, even now also, when kids are playing some kind of games, understand what they do? They what to call collect. They write their names on any papers. They roll the papers. Understand? They put all those rolled papers in a box. So any one of the kid is going to pick one sheet. Based upon that, the game will be proceeded. So what do you mean by that? That is nothing but the lottery system. Here also, all the population units will be numbered. All those numbers will be written on what you called papers of equal in quality. Because if at all any deviation is there in terms of the quality, in terms of the size, in terms of the color, it leads to what you call bias. That should not happen. So all these rolled chits, rolled lotteries are going to be put in a box, understand? And any one of the person blindfoldedly picking those what you call the chits from that box. If you want to have 10 units for the sample, that means sample size of 10 units, you pick the 10 chits. If you want to have 15 as your what you call the sample size, you are going to pick the 15 chits randomly from that box. So such a way, if you select the sample, that sample you are calling as a simple random sample, a more effective sample for any kind of statistical investigation for that. What do you call this method? Lottery system method or lottery method. And one more a very good method of picking the simple random sampling is the table of random numbers. So previously, while doing this normal distribution problems, binomial problems, Poisson distribution problems, logarithmic what you call values, where you are going to have those separate tables are available. Just like that, if you consider any statistics kind of book, understand, at the rear end of the book, you will find a table of random numbers. 2 digit, 3 digit, 4 digit, article. So like different types of random numbers would be there, especially Tippett, T-I-P-P-E-T. Tippett random number tables are very, very famous. So here the numbers 0 to 9 will be what you call written, so that every number repeated equal number, most of the times equal in number. So those numbers will be picked, and according to that you are going to match the population number. So by the way, what you are going to get, you are going to have your wanted sample in your hand. Understand? So what do you call this method? Through the random number table, selection of the sample. Besides these two methods, one more method is there, what you call that roulette wheel method. So in this method, what will be there? A big rotatory wheel would be there. So on the circumference of the wheel, what will be there? The numbers will be denoted. Understand? The wheel will be rotated. Understand? At certain point of time, a number will be what you call shown by the indicator on the wheel. So there is no guarantee that every time the same number going to be repeated. Such a way, based upon the size of the sample, you are going to rotate the wheel and picking up what you called the number which matches the population units. Such a way also you can pick the random sample. Overall way, the main criteria of the random sample is nothing but there will not be any kind of biasness. There will not be any kind of priority as far as the units of the sample is concerned. Okay? So what you call this? You are calling this one as the first method under the sampling method, simple random sampling method. Extensively, if you want to understand, actually there are two types of simple random sampling methods. SRS methods. In short, what you call this? SRS methods. Simple random sampling with replacement, that is SRS-WR. And simple random sampling without replacement. So these are the two different types of simple random sampling methods. Now see here, through the picture, actually the way one is going to be selected, the simple random has been portrayed. Now here all the population units are there. Number of cars, number of students, number of bikes, a number of medical volunteers. Do you know medical volunteers? Those are selected persons to test the efficacy of any vaccine, any medicine. What you call them? Medical volunteers. Understand? So from different persons, what is there? Unknowingly, the second person, fifth person has been selected, another 8th person, 10th person. So this sample is known as the random sample. So before that, what has happened here? All the units of the population have been numbered. That is most important. That's why in the starting of the discussion, what was the information? This simple random sampling applied only on the what you called finite population, small size populations. Okay. Now we go for the next method. This is one best example in order to understand the simple random sample. Now here, how many names are there? 48 names are there. So without any criteria, randomly if you pick sample units of 5, because if you want to have 5 units in your sample, that becomes a simple random sampling. So what is that? Number 28 person chosen as a member of the sample, like 48th person, 29th person, 27th person, 32 person. Okay. So this is what you call names listed here. This is a random number table, let us suppose. So here, row wise, you can pick 8, like that 1, like 7, like 2. So if you see, all the numbers are from 0 to 9 only. So you can pick like that also. Let us suppose we want to have 15 as your sample size. Then you need to go for what called 2-digit random number tables. So based upon the size of the sample, you can read out the sample units from what you called various types of tippet random numbers. This is roulette wheel. What I explained, this is a rotatory wheel. So numbers are there, pointers would be there. At certain point of time, the wheel comes to the standstill, and to which number that pointer is going to be what you call pointed, that corresponding population unit will be included into the sample. Now we go for systematic sampling. What is a systematic sampling? The name itself indicating you. So here you are going to select all the sample units in a particular order, particular systematic order. Understand? One procedure you are going to follow. Hence this method is known as a systematic sampling method. Systematic sampling relies on arranging the target population according to some ordering scheme and then selecting elements at regular intervals through that ordered list. So here also what is happening? All the population units are going to be numbered and will be listed according to any rule from ascending order, descending order, whatever may be. So systematic sampling involves random start and then proceeds with the selection of every kth element from then onwards. In this case, k is nothing but population size by sample size. So here the k is known as a random start. Very, very important value. Entire generation of the sample through the systematic sampling depends upon identification of the k. So what is the formula? Population size by sample size. Now let us suppose that here the population size is 100 units, or else what let us suppose 1000 units, and you want to have 100 units into your sample. Then what is the k value is going to be 1000 by 100. So it is nothing but the 10. That means every 10th value you are going to select. So let us suppose that out of 1000 values, first number 10, next 20, next 30, next 40, like that you are going to pick. So that gap is going to be same and similar throughout the selection of the what you call the sample. Hence this method is known as the systematic sampling method. It is important that starting point is not automatically the first in the list, but is instead randomly chosen from within the first to the kth element in the list. So what is the best example? A simple example would be to select every 10th name from the telephone directory, and every 10th sample is also referred as a sampling with a skip of 10. So you are skipping 10 names. So what is that ratio? Sampling fraction means ratio between sample size and population size. So these are the advantages of systematic sampling. Simple, sample easy to select. Suitable sampling frame can be identified easily. Sample evenly spread over entire reference population. What are the disadvantages? Sample may be biased if hidden periodicity in population coincides with that of the selection. Difficult to assess precision of estimates from one survey. See, all of you observe here. So what is the first unit picked into a sample? Second. So after that, what is the gap maintained here? 2 units. Fifth unit, again 2 units gap. 8th unit, again 2 units gap. 11th units, again 12, 13 will not be there. 14 will be involved. Again 15, 16 will not be there. 17 will be involved. So what is that? Every third element is going to be involved. Every third auto rickshaw is involved into the sample. Every third student is involved into the sample. Every third patient is involved into the sample. So you are following a method, a fixed method. That's why this method is known as the systematic sampling method. This is one example to understand the systematic sample. So systematic sampling works well when the individuals are already lined up in order. So that means to apply the systematic sample, all the units should be labeled. Label means you should assign the signs, preferably with numbers. In the past, students have often used this method when asked to survey a random sample of ECC students. Since we don't have access to the complete list, just stand at a corner and pick every 10th person walking by. So what is that gap we are maintaining here? Every 10th person. So here 10 means randomly chosen. It would depend on number of students typically passing by that spot and what sample size was needed. The basic thing here you need to remember is while applying a systematic sample, all the units should be labeled. You need to find out the K value and you need to pick by maintaining what you call that gap. Next we discuss stratified sampling. So till now what we discussed, SRS sample, that is the simple random sample. Next systematic sample. Now we are going to discuss the stratified sampling or else stratified random sampling, where population embraces a number of distinct categories. The frame can be organized into separate strata. Each stratum is then sampled as an independent subpopulation out of which individual elements can be randomly selected. So here, to understand the stratified random sampling method, the best example is our household example only, which is nothing but usually our mother performs this. Do you know the most of the sampling methods performed by mother in the kitchen? If you observe carefully after following all these methods, you will be amazed. Maybe she doesn't know the actual terminology, so after getting all the information you observe, every time she will be using one or the other different types of the sampling methods. Now how come she is going to apply the stratified random sampling method or else the stratified sampling? So usually when mother go for purchasing vegetables, understand, will she going to put all the vegetables in a single bag or else she is going to carry different bags to put what you call different vegetables in different bags? It's common thing that, so generally when you go for purchasing vegetables, we go with a single bag and we are going to purchase various kinds of vegetables like tomatoes, like what we call brinjals, carrots, radishes, whatever may be. All the items are put in a single bag. You have to understand this point. That means that bag contains all the population units. So again what she is doing, she will come back to the home. So in the kitchen what she is going to do, so she put all the vegetables on the ground, on the table, whatever may be, and she separates the various vegetables according to their character. All the carrots are in one group, radishes are in one group, tomatoes are in one group, okay, XYZ items. So all these groups are known as the stratas. So how many, what you call, all these groups are known as the stratas. Each group is known as the stratum. Only carrot group is known as one stratum. Only what I would say tomatoes group is known as the stratum. So clubbing all the stratums becomes a strata. Then what is a stratum? A stratum is nothing but homogeneous subgroup of the population units. This is very, very important. So what is a stratum? A stratum is nothing but homogeneous subgroup of the population. Again from each this stratum, wanted kind of what you call things will be picked up. That means few carrots will be selected, few tomatoes will be selected, few what you call radishes would be selected, and a sample will be formed. So all these activities are known as the stratification. Remember, so what are the words you got now? Stratum, stratification, strata. So stratum is nothing but homogeneous subgroup of the things. All the stratums collectively are calling as the strata. So from the strata, selection of what you called the sample is known as the stratification. Again, while you go for stratification, we are applying the SRS sample, simple random sample only, simple random sampling method, the first method. So try to memorize this wonderful example, you will not confuse. The best example to understand stratified random sampling is vegetable bag with different vegetables. So let us come to the slide here. So what is the second point? Every unit in a stratum has same chance of being selected. You see here. That means different items would be there, but still they have the equal amount of importance. That is most important. Hence, all these methods are known as the random sample methods. If at all, if you are giving special importance, special grade, special privilege, it cannot be what you call comes under random sampling methods. It becomes what you call non-random sampling methods. So what is the third point? Using same sampling fraction for all strata ensures proportionate representation in the sample. So adequate representation of minority subgroups of interest can be ensured by stratification and varying sampling fraction between strata as required. So what we call this? The stratified random sampling method. All the population units will be converted into small homogeneous subgroups. You call them as stratums. Collection of the stratums are known as the strata. From the strata, by using SRS sample, you are going to pick the sample. Understand? Look at this picture. So through this picture, you can clearly understand what is a stratified random sampling. You see all blue color persons, all what you called maroon color, all green color. That means these are known as the stratums, stratum 1, stratum 2, stratum 3. All these collectively are known as the strata. So from there, what is there? From the first stratum 1 unit. From the second stratum, what you call, because of the importance, 2 units, like from the third stratum, 1 unit is collected and formed a sample. So this sampling method is known as the stratified random sampling method. What is the thing you need to remember here? Homogeneous. Homogeneous means having the same kind of features. Now we discuss the cluster sampling methods. What is a cluster? Cluster is also nothing but a group of units only, sampling units only. So based upon certain criteria, what will be there? The population units will be converted into clusters. In a city, all bungalows, all what you called middle class houses, understand? So all what you call huts. So such a what will be there in terms of groups formed. From those groups again, the sample units will be selected. So those groups known as a cluster. So what is a cluster? A cluster is nothing but the group of sampling units close to each other, that is crowding together. Crowding means grouping together in the same area or neighborhood. See, all of you look at here. So from this area, let us suppose that this is a city. In this part of the city, this is assumed as one cluster. And again here, one more cluster. Isn't it? Such a way, according to some norm, some condition, the units are going to be formed into groups. From each group again, the sample will be selected. Such a kind of method is known as the cluster sampling method. The next method under random probability sampling methods is nothing but the multi-stage sampling methods. Generally, the multi-stage sampling method will be applied when the research is going on in the big scale. So, let us suppose that you want to extract information regarding whole the country. The entire country can be what you call segmented into states like Telangana, like AP, like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, isn't it? Again, in each state, what will be there? Sub-segment can be converted, like what you called the cities, taluks, villages, understand? Again, the small unit is going to be the house. Such a way, in terms of layers, the entire population units will be what you call subdivided, and finally, from the wanted layer, the information will be extracted. So, such a kind of what you called sampling method is known as a multi-stage sampling method. So, what are the points? The complex form of cluster sampling in which two or more levels of units are embedded in one another. So, first stage, random number of districts chosen in all states. That means a state can be segmented into districts. Again, a district can be sub-segmented into taluks, villages. In the third stage, what will be there? The houses. So, all ultimate units, houses for instance, selected at the last step and survey will be conducted. So, what do you mean by this? This you are calling as a multi-stage sampling. So, remember that all these are all again connected to the first sampling method. What do you call that? The SRS sampling method, simple random sampling method. The final method is multi-phase sampling method. So here part of the information collected from whole sample and part from subsample. Understand? So that means, let us suppose that here in a college, what will be there? Different courses will be there. Engineering students would be there, management students would be there. So for certain information, all the students will be what you call assumed and a sample will be collected. So in that sample, both engineering students would be there and as well as the management students would be there. That is called the first level. In the second level, let us suppose the information regarding what you call management aspects is required. Again, under the selected sample, only management people will be what you called interviewed to what you call get the information regarding the management situation. Okay, so such a kind of sampling method is known as the multi-phase sampling method. So that means under multi-phase sampling method, so a sample will be selected and from that information will be gathered. But again, from that sample, subpart will be collected for what you called proving some other information. A sample within the sample will be investigated. Such a kind of method is known as the multi-phase sampling method. So these are the various methods under random probability sampling methods. Now we go for the one more set of sampling methods known as non-probability or the non-random sampling techniques or as a deterministic sampling techniques. Here the entire samples are going to be selected at the discretion of the surveyor. Completely biased sampling methods. Understand? Now here if you concern, these are the various important methods like quota sampling method, convenience sampling method, judgment sampling method, snowball sampling method. So under quota sampling method, so here according to the prior condition from the population, things will be what you called selected according to the given rule. The next one is called the convenience sampling. So under convenience sampling, the sampling units will be selected at the convenience of the availability of the information. The next one is the judgment sampling method. Here, the sampling units are going to be selected based upon the judgment or else what you call the opinion given by the selector. So under snowball sampling, what is happening? The first units will be selected based upon the what you call the researcher opinion. Again, that corresponding units will be asked to collect what you call related samples. So let us see this picture. So in the snowball, the researcher actually collected first two persons. Again, those two persons asked to collect what you call information generation. Now this one is the quota sample. So under quota sample, what is happening? According to the condition, according to the rule, the sampling units will be collected. Now here, based upon the personal bias, personal judgment, objectivity, the sampling units will be selected by the selector. So here, according to the availability, might be time, distance, whatever may be, what to call the sampling units would be selected. What to call this? Convenience sample. See here, quota sampling. The population is first segmented into mutually exclusive subgroups, just as in stratified sampling. Then judgment used to select a subjects or units from each segment based on a specified proportion. So for example, an interviewer may be told to sample 200 females and 300 males between the age of 45 and 60. It is this second step which makes the technique one of non-probability sampling method. So under quota sampling, the selection of the sample is non-random. That means before itself, prediction of the sampling unit is possible. So for example, interviewers might be tempted to interview those who look most helpful. The problem is that these samples may be biased because not everyone gets a chance of selection. This random element is its greatest weakness, and quota versus probability has been a matter of controversy for many years. So while job interviews are going on, it's a common thing that if at all any known persons are there, if at all any what you call highly qualified people are there. But in the notification, who are eligible, who did MBA, all those are eligible. But within the MBA, if at all anybody did extra qualification, if anybody having previous work experience, understand, with proven track record, those candidates will be what you call given importance. Such a way, selection of the candidates for a job becomes a quota sampling. Next one is a convenience sampling. What are other names? Grab or else opportunity sampling or accidental or haphazard sampling. So these are the different names. Say a type of probability sampling which involves the sample being drawn from that part of the population which is close to hand, that is readily available and convenient. Now here the close to hand means not what you called reachable to hand. The thing is some kind of conditions specified. If at all the units are going to be satisfied, those units are going to be picked up as the sampling units. The researcher using such a sample cannot scientifically make generalizations about the total population from this sample because it would not be representative enough. So what is the thing here? most of the times the deterministic sample are not at all suitable for generalizing the information. So what are the samples? The best samples are probability samples. For example, if the interviewer was to conduct a survey at a shopping center early in the morning on a given day, the people that he or she could interview would be limited to those given there at that given time, which would not represent the views of other members of society in such an area if the survey was to be conducted at different times of day and several times per week. And now what is happening according to the convenience of the researcher, he is simply interviewing the customers, whoever visiting the shop in the morning, understand? But the few customers are going to shop in the afternoon, few of them will shop in the evening. So here the information is going to miss. So here the information is going to miss from those what you call shoppers, which do shopping at different times. So this type of sampling is most useful for pilot testing. So what is pilot testing here? Beforehand, if you want to understand whether the to be selected sample providing good results, good information, so in order to test that quality, so one can apply the convenience sampling. In social science research, snowball sampling is a similar technique where existing study subjects are used to recruit more subjects into the sample. So next we are going to understand about the snowball sampling also. The next one is the judgmental sampling, or what is the one more name, purposive sampling. The researcher chooses the sample based on who they think would be appropriate for the study. This is used primarily when there is a limited number of people that have expertise in the area being researched. The best example is cricket team selection. As you all know that whenever country goes for playing matches in other nations, big team would be selected, 15 players, 20 players like that. But actually whenever a match starts, you find on the ground only 11 players. That means out of these 20 players, how come these 11 players were chosen based upon their previous performance, based upon their what you call special skills, like all-rounders would be there, only batsmen would be there, only what you call bowlers would be there. So according to the need, according to the what you call the conditions of the playing conditions, the coach or the captain is going to judge this player is going to be the what you call instrumental for this match. That means here the personal objectiveness is coming into the picture. So such a way, selection of the units into the sample is known as the judgmental sampling. The final one is the snowball sampling. So in snowball sampling, an initial group of respondents is selected, usually at random. After being interviewed, these respondents are asked to identify others who belong to the target population of interest. Subsequent respondents are selected based on the reference. Here, initially few units will be selected. And again, those units are given permission. So here units in the sense, let us suppose, students, or else what you call the units which are capable of picking other items into the sample. So they will be asked to pick other units into the sample if they are what you call satisfying the prefixed conditions or as the criteria. Such a kind of sampling method is known as the snowball sampling method. So which is the final method as far as non-random sampling methods are concerned. So today what we had discussed about probability sampling methods and as well as non-probability sampling methods. So here ends your third unit. Thank you so much.